Action, yeah? Okay, so guys, we got international business. This is lecture number 5. And we begin with chapter 2. We open the book on page, if you bring in the textbook with you, this is on page 41. And 41 is about national differences in political economy. Political economy. And luckily, last time I already gave you the introduction. So, section number 1. Introduction. Okay? And the introduction is fairly straightforward. If you invest in a foreign country, if you deal with a foreign country, if you import from a foreign country, and more importantly, if you export to a foreign country, you need to understand the economic environment. You need to understand the political environment. You need to understand the legal environment. Okay? And you need to understand the culture and the cultural environment. So, the subject which studies all of these, except the cultural, is called political economy. And the political economy emphasizes the political, economic, and legal systems of the economy in a given country. So, section number 2, political systems. And political systems run in 2 dimensions. The first dimension is collectivism. That's the first dimension. The opposite of the first dimension is individualism. So, this is the first dimension. And the second dimension, let's take a quick look, is the democracy and totalitarianism. All right. So, some societies are naturally collectivistic in nature. And sometimes the ruling elite would like to impose collectivist ideas. Some societies are by nature more individualistic. So, in collectivist society, the focus is on the society, and society's priorities are above individual freedoms. In individualistic societies, individual freedom dominates. In other words, it is a battle between the government and the individual. When the individual has better and higher rights and is better protected, you have an individualistic society. When you have the government dominating over the individual, you have collectivistic society. Okay? So, number 1 type of society is, within collectivism, okay, I can use a little bit different color, is, okay, communism. Communism of the Marxist or Marxist-Leninist variety. This is what we have in Cuba and in North Korea. This is what was Eastern European bloc, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, including China was, so that's the communist type. The other type here is of collectivist society, socialism. And in socialism, you will have what's called social democrats. And what we call social democracy. You want to have society dominate, okay? You want the society to dominate over individuals, but at the same time, you want to couple it with democracy so that you have certain social priorities. Social priorities like government maybe taking care of education, at least primary education, and maybe secondary education. Government taking care of some form of health care, at least partial, or at least basic, or at least health care for the children, or health care for the children and health care for the old people, okay? Or what's called catastrophic health care, when you have some extreme health problems that will literally ruin you. Okay, so let's see what we have. Here, the basic idea of collectivism is the collective good. It is for the good of society, because society over everything else. Now, which are some of the most collectivistic societies in the world?
Russia.
Which one?
Russia.
No, definitely not. Collectivistic society will be Japan, highly collectivistic. Individual is repressed for the benefit of society, for the benefit of the corporation. So Japanese are highly.
Koreans?
Koreans, yes, excellent answer. Koreans are highly collectivistic in nature. All right? So, in many ways, Chinese are trying to impose and to be. Chinese economy is relatively collectivistic. So, overall, we can say that most Asian economies and most Asian cultures tend towards the collectivistic side of things. So, Asian culture, or we call Eastern culture, is relatively collectivistic in nature. And Western culture, based on the original Roman law, and later on the British common law, and later on the American freedoms of liberty and all the others called Bill of Rights, is relatively individualistic. So we can say, but not perfectly true, that as you move from west to east, you move on the spectrum from individualism to collectivism. And you could say not exactly that the US would be, well, US of 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago would be the relatively most individualistic country, and Japan will be the relatively most collectivistic country by nature. Okay, so you can have a highly collective society which you actually couple with democracy, and then again a social democracy. Well, let's try. So which one will be social democracy? Social democracy will be Australia, I'm just reading, France, Germany, Great Britain, Norway, Spain, Sweden, okay? You have social democrats ruling in there. I'm going to get in about a minute, but you may get to couple highly collectivist society with a totalitarianism, okay? And when you couple these two, you can get the two extremes of collectivist totalitarian society. The one extreme is communism, and the other extreme is?
Totalism. Totalism.
Which one?
No, is it totalism?
Totalitarianism, yes.
Okay.
But totalitarianism you couple with collectivism, and you get a special one called fascism. F-A-S-C-H, fascism. Well, we should discuss it now because as absurd as it sounds is we got an extraordinary rise of fascism. Well, first of all, what is fascism? Fascism is the merger of government and business, where government serves the interest of big business and corporations, and big business and corporations serve the interest of government. Okay? Sometimes we call this, and there is a little bit of a difference, corporatism. So today, many countries have corporatism, where the government favors major corporations, okay, and multinational enterprises, and corporations do their profit and work and help the government in every possible way. In other words, it's big business and big government up against the people, okay? So, corporatism and fascism. Corporatism essentially is Mussolini's definition of fascism. Is the merger of government, and big business. And here's the key: for the promotion of the interest of the government. So when you merge these to promote the interest of the government, you get fascism. When you merge these two and you promote the interest of corporations, you get corporatism. And the other key characteristic of fascism is nationalistic spirit, okay, that we are better, that we are stronger, we can beat the hell out of it, the rest of the world, and militarism. So you got a highly militarized country which is ready, willing to aggress and take over other countries. It maintains big military. It spends a lot of money on military, uses major corporations, and in this we got two countries which fit and are best described as fascists. Number one, today, again?
North Korea?
No. No. Number one, USA, United States of America, is by its fundamental nature moving steadily from individualistic society to highly collectivistic, moving steadily from eroding individual liberties into a rising police state. Has been for the last 20, 30 years, the United States is spending more on military than the rest of the world, okay? The United States since World War II has been involved in over, how many wars? 100 wars. And the last 40 years have witnessed the extraordinary merger of American megacorporations with the government, where the government serves the corporations and corporations are in service of the government, for the overall impoverishment of the middle class. The U.S. middle class has not grown and has not increased its standard of living for the last 40 years. So while the economy has grown steadily high, all of the benefits of the growth were extracted by two entities, well, maybe three. Number one, the government. The government has grown to be a giant monster. And number two, mega corporations, which are getting ultra rich, okay? And the ultra rich elite, the so-called, what is known now as the 1%. And the other country, which is relatively fascist in nature, is United Kingdom. United Kingdom is, again, eroding steadily personal liberties. There is little left of individualism. United Kingdom is kind of like, they proud themselves of having the highest number, so many millions of security cameras everywhere. They're watching everybody and everything, right? right? They're following emails and all the other things. Well, that's not individualism, that's collectivism. And the government is in service of mega corporations, especially the big banks and big business. So this sounds absurd, but again, I haven't exactly lost my mind. The more you read and understand fascism, the more you see, oh, well, that's what modern America is today. That's what modern UK is today, okay? So, that's about collectivism. Individualism is what America was 100 years, or 200 years ago. This is what the UK was 150 years ago, not today, okay? All right, you gotta understand that. All right, let's see what else we got. Social democrats, we got this part, individualism, all right. It's coming back from Greek origin, later on developed by Romans, okay, the Roman philosophers, and later on by Western Europeans, and later on by the British libertarians. And the key names are David Hume, Adam Smith, and John Stuart Mill. These are 200 years ago. That's a distant memory of what the UK looks today, okay? Where the police clashes and beats its own people to death. You can see them clashing everywhere about everything. All right, so that's individualism, all right. In terms of individualistic freedoms, the ultimate book, which we now consider to be the birth of the subject of economics, is the book by Adam Smith, which is called The Wealth of Nations. Wealth of Nations is simply a book which tries to explain why some nations are rich and why some nations are poor. And back 240 years ago, 1776, yeah, 240 years ago, basically he said, hey, those nations that are in warmer climates are relatively poor because people are lazy, and Nordic people are relatively hardworking and relatively rich. The reason is that if you're in a Nordic climate, you can't be lazy, because if you're lazy, you're going to die during the freezing cold winter from hunger or from cold. So you got to have foresight, and you got to build capital. So the Nordic climate forces you, whether you like it or not, to think forward, to accumulate capital, to develop your knowledge. It's not random, because if you didn't, you simply die. And most northern people die. And those that survived because they had to develop their brain power and their economic skills, as in capital, food, and all the other things that you need to survive in the harsh, cold winter. Well, he also explained, hey, some cultures, people are hardworking. Their religion is really good for economic prosperity, where people are just hardworking. And some cultures, people are just lazy. They don't want to work. They don't care about, they don't think about the future. Some cultures just want to consume today. They don't care about tomorrow. So this is what Adam Smith wrote about 240 years ago, and it was about economic growth and economic development, foundation of economics today. All right, democracy and totalitarianism. You have what's called direct democracy. People literally rule themselves, they rule their own country, okay? And that's extremely rare in large societies. It's almost impossible. Therefore, you have what's called representative. Representative democracy. In a representative democracy, you use elections and you use what we call elected representative. Elected representative. Okay? So that's all fairly straightforward. Here, in the totalitarianism, you got this marker not very good. Let me try and see this one. If this one works. You got communism. So communism is one leading case of totalitarian structure. Another one is called theocratic. Theocratic totalitarianism is based on the idea of theocracy. Theocracy meaning rule of the clergy. In other words, it is based on religion. And the religion is, which is dominant today here, is Muslims. Most Muslim countries are by nature theocratic totalitarianism. Saudi Arabia is entirely religious based on Muslims, and the ruler is, the top is the king, who has divine rights and all the other things. And another one is Iran. So they're all, if you get to notice, kingdoms, okay? So I worked and lived in the kingdom of Bahrain, okay, is another theocratic type. Qatar, the Emirates, okay, the sheikhs in the Emirates, okay? So most of these Muslim countries, they will impose some sort of theocratic totalitarianism. Now, when you're doing business in these countries, what you discover that business in these countries is very, very, very difficult sometimes. It's very difficult to do business in Saudi Arabia. It's very difficult to do business in Egypt, okay? It's very difficult to do business, meaning foreigners doing business in Iran, okay? You also have local theocracy. Again, too many problems. You really, really need to understand the economy, how it works. You need to understand the culture, because the culture is intertwined with religion. And religion is intertwined with politics. And religion and politics is intertwined with the economy, okay? And there is a very good research showing that these type of totalitarian economies are, by nature, very, very, very poor, unless they happen to have an awful lot of oil, like Saudi Arabia, in which case it's mostly the elite that gets most of the riches and most of the people are relatively poor, okay? And same thing applies for most of the other theocratic countries like Iran, like Egypt. Well, Egypt, they somehow say they got all the other things. Yeah, they got elections.
What do you mean by it is very difficult to make business in such kind of country?
It means very difficult means that you have a lot of bureaucratic impediments. You want to open a business? Sure, you got to apply for this. Okay, you apply, you wait, I don't know, 3 months. Okay, well, then you got to get a tax ID number. Okay, you get a tax ID number. Oh, wait 2 months.
What about like in Emirates?
Again, it is very different. The one which has understood clearly that being liberal, being open is not Emirates. It's Dubai, and Dubai is one of the 7 Emirates. So, okay, the United Arab Emirates got 7 Emirates. And these 7 Emirates are relatively different from each other. And, well, the richest one is Abu Dhabi. That's the difference based on oil that they have. But the most developed economically is Dubai. And Dubai was developed exactly because they understand that you should liberalize. Foreigners want to buy a house? No problem. Go ahead, buy a house, okay? You want to invest money? Sure, no problem, invest money. You want to open business? Okay, relatively easy to open business. Oh, you want to get a driver's license? Okay, no problem. You can get a 5-year driver's license, okay? So this is exactly, Dubai is one of the greatest illustrations how globalization can increase jobs, can increase prosperity, can raise standards of living, can be for the benefit of everyone if it's done with proper economic measures, okay? As liberalization of the economy. So Dubai is trying to be what is Hong Kong in the Middle East. They try to be the Hong Kong of the Middle East. And they are doing it to a great extent. Another economy which is doing very well, because they have also realized that you have to keep the system liberal, especially in terms of capital inflow and capital outflow, and that's Bahrain. And Bahrain is the Switzerland of the Middle East. It's a tiny little country as big as the island of Phuket, maybe 50 kilometers long and maybe 30 kilometers wide, and they got over 400 banks, okay? There are more banks in Bahrain than in the rest of the Middle East, okay? And they've done this with a relatively better legal system, okay? Protecting the rights of investors and individuals, bankers, that was protecting capital. So you take care of capital, capital is going to come in, okay? But if you don't take good care of capital and try to take, then capital is going to run away, as, for example, happened in Russia in recent decades, in the last decade, where, Russian government started, doing a lot of things, and suddenly capital is not safe, and capital starts fleeing out of the country. So you got theocratic, usually theocracy, and usually this type of totalitarianism is always characterized by huge bureaucracy. Someone's got a sign, a permit is required. You need a government to issue this permit. You need the government to issue that permit. Things are complicated. You need 27 things to open a business.
You have that one in Germany much more.
Yes, yes. That's a problem in Germany. Well, it has been for a while, is that Germany is becoming highly bureaucratic. And bureaucracy means inefficiency. And bureaucracy means that bureaucracy is slowly but steadily killing an economy, okay? Unfortunately, bureaucracy is a sure sign of an economy and culture, well, economic culture in decline. You got huge bureaucracy in the United States, huge, overwhelming. You have a huge bureaucracy in the United Kingdom. You got a huge bureaucracy in France. Bureaucracy is killing, and regulations and restrictions are killing the French economy. Well, bureaucracy and regulations are killing most of Western Europe. Western Europe is slowly but surely dying because of bureaucratic control, and now the overarching bureaucracy in Brussels, okay? It's all killing Europe, okay? It is amazing that the German economy is still afloat, given that Greece and all the other neighbors and the European bureaucracy is pulling it down. It's just a miracle that it's still afloat. I mean, it's a sinking boat, but it's sinking very, very slowly, while Greece and Italy and Spain are already underwater, okay? They are already bankrupt. France is going down fast. Belgium is going down fast, okay? It's just still an economic miracle that the economy holds, okay? It hasn't fallen apart. All right, and let's see what else. Totalitarianism. This one is called right-wing, and within the right-wing totalitarianism is sometimes, it is not exactly the same, but it's almost the same as military dictatorship. Military. You got to understand, you got way too many countries in the world that are dictatorships and totalitarian by nature, even today, okay? You got so many Arab countries, all right? So up until recently, military dictatorships were South Korea. South Korea grew out of a military dictatorship, and it grew really well. Indonesia was a military dictatorship, but it didn't prosper. It went poorer and poorer due to it. Another military dictatorship will be the Philippines. And during the Philippines, again, it didn't do well for the country. It was fairly, it did fairly poorly. And another military dictatorship was Taiwan. Yeah?
I'm not sure about Turkey and Egypt. They might also-
Turkey is from time to time, they usually not. They usually have elections and everything else. You got to understand that you may have a short period of time where you have a military dictatorship and then it hands off to another one. Something similar is in Egypt. Egypt is sometimes military dictatorship, sometimes they got elections, okay? So it's a little, and in the meantime, you got theocracy, which is in the middle most of the time. In theocracy, you got like dual political system where theocracy has a certain power and you have a political system exactly the way Europe was during the Middle Ages, where you got the separate kingdoms and separately you got the church. And the church is like a kingdom inside or within the kingdom, or spreading within the different kingdoms. All right, so this is the right wing, and part of the right wing is, of course, fascism. It's the same fascism as over there. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Oh yes, one more, last one is called tribal. Totalitarianism, still massively used and still massively in Africa. So many African countries, they use the tribal leader is the local despot. Okay, he is the totalitarian. And these would include, let me see some countries for these tribal, yeah, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, or Tanzania, sometimes pronounced Uganda, and Kenya. Okay? When you have this type of tribal totalitarianism, you almost always have extremely poor country. The reason is that the tribal leader is doing everything to grab all the economic resources and benefits for himself and his near, like the family, and all the others are just terribly poor. They have no right, no power, no nothing. So that's pretty much it. Is it time, yeah? About time to finish? Yeah, time to finish. Okay, we're finished now. That completes the section. Next section is going to be economic systems next time. Thank you. Question?